Hi, everybody. I'm Kristy Woodson Harvey, and I am so excited to be here today with my good friend, Wade Rouse, who writes as Viola Shipman. He's going to tell you a little bit more about that in just a minute. But we are so excited to welcome him to our third episode of Blank to Beautiful to talk about, well, we don't know yet. It's going to be a surprise, right?
I know. It hit me.
So I want to tell you just a little bit about Wade and his really illustrious career before we start chatting and hearing from him. He is the internationally best-selling author of 9 books, which have been translated into nearly 20 languages. You know him from novels like The Charm Bracelet, which was the 2017 Michigan Notable Book of the Year, The Hope Chest, and The Recipe Box, which New York Times bestselling author Dorothea Benton Frank said every now and then a new voice in fiction arrives to completely charm, entertain, and remind us what matters. Viola Shipman is that voice. That's pretty high praise from the Queen Bee herself. His books have been selected as must-reads by the Today Show, featured in the Washington Post, USA Today, and on Chelsea lately, and have been chosen 3 times as Indie Next Picks by the nation's independent booksellers. His writing has appeared all over the place in publications like Coastal Living, Time, People, Good Housekeeping, Forbes, Writer's Digest, and Publishers Weekly. So I could go on, but we want to hear from you a little bit too, right? So I thought just first and foremost, we have to get it out of the way. Tell us about the decision to start writing as Viola Shipman and, what went into that decision and if you think it was a good one.
I do. And, it's unusual because, a man writing women's fiction under his grandmother's pen name's like a literary Victor Victoria. It seems on its surface very odd. And it was a conscious decision. I spent inordinate amounts of time with my grandmothers growing up. They were working poor. They sacrificed incredibly for my family and especially for me. And personally, it's the smallest thank you I can give to them, and especially my grandmother Shipman, for all she did for us. My books are all about reminding readers of what's most important in the world. And my grandmother, she really got it.
Right.
She knew what life was about. So that's why.
That's amazing. I absolutely love that. And so you and I were lucky enough to share a pub day this year, Tuesday, April 28th, right? So can you tell us a little bit about the Heirloom Garden and your inspiration for that book?
Yeah, and it's been lovely because I feel like we're fraternal book twins.
I know. We've gotten to do a lot of these events together, and it's been really fun. It's been fun to have a friend to hang out.
And I think I told you, I think it's meant to be. I think when authors have their books come out at the same time and they meet, I think it's meant for a reason. So it's been really lovely. The Heirloom Garden, it's a novel that follows 2 women a generation apart who have been scarred by war and loss and tragedy, and they find hope and purpose again through a garden of flowers. And, it's inspired by my grandmother, who was a terrific gardener, and the stories that she shared with me growing up. And it's inspired also by 2 big questions that I wanted to ask a year ago that are even more important now, which is, why we isolate ourselves from the world and what gives us hope. And in the novel, Iris Maynard's an 80-year-old former botanist who lost her husband in World War II and her daughter to polio and eventually her career in a male-dominated world. And she walls herself off behind a towering fence and, propagates her own flowers, which has characteristics of those she's lost. And so she can be surrounded by her family without ever having to leave and get hurt again. It's a beautiful story of hope and friendship of all ages. And, I've just been so humbled by the response it's got.
It's amazing. Well, I'm so excited about this book. It's on my nightstand. I haven't read it yet, but I can't wait to. I know I'm going to love it. I mean, what have I been doing?
Just bonbons and chatting on the phone.
Yeah. All right. So did you always know you wanted to be a writer, or when you were growing up and you were a little kid and people would say, what do you want to be when you grow up? What would you say?
I would say a writer. Do you know that? It was like for a long time I said an actor because I like to play act a lot growing up. But one of my first gifts, and I have a picture on my website, is that little typewriter that my grandparents got me. And it was, I was always taking little notes and scribbling and writing and starting stories. So it's what I wanted to do. I think we both have in common. I majored in journalism because I thought that was how you had to make a career as a writer. You had to be a journalist. And I loved my career, but it's not truly what I wanted to do. So always.
Okay. And I mean, since we're talking about you being a journalist, I mean, I wasn't going to bring it up, but can you tell everybody some of your favorite people that you've interviewed?
I know where you're going with this. Yes, I used to write for People and cover the Real Housewives, which I know
How cool is that?
We both love. So those were among my favorite people that I've interviewed. I have to say I interviewed President Bush in the past, and
that's pretty cool too.
So it's always like President, Housewives, compare, and I really like the Housewives.
Well, that's really fun. I love that so much. So if you're, looking back now and seeing kind of where you are now and where you have come on this journey, if you had to look back and give your younger self a piece of advice, what would you tell your younger self?
It's a great question. I would say be proud of who you are. I think like so many of us, we spend so much time just trying to fit in, and we kind of wash our uniqueness away, the beauty of what makes us us. And I spent a huge part of my life just not wanting to be recognized, just wanting to fit in with the rest of the world, just wanting to be fully accepted and not stand out. And that really hurt my heart. That's in my soul. And so I think just be true to who you are. And that's what I tell. I mean, when I teach high schoolers and go to colleges, that's what I tell them. And I hope it resonates on some level.
Yeah. Oh, I think that's amazing advice. And you're so right. I mean, I think it is hard to kind of make your own way in the world. It's much easier when no one's looking at you. I mean, it's you can just sort of fit in and fade away. So, all right. So while we're on advice, if there was someone that came to you and said, Wade, I really want to get started writing, what would your piece of advice be for aspiring writers?
I have a lot of advice.
I don't need it, so lay it on me.
Number one is write. Sit down and actually write. Start the process. Don't just talk about it. There's one of my favorite shows used to be Everybody Loves Raymond. Yeah. And he used to say AIS, which was because he would go sit in his car and his family would always be late, and it was called Ass and Seat. And so, and he said, much of life is just sitting down and doing what you got to do. And I believe that's a huge part of it. We think we need to be inspired, and we do, but a lot of it's just hard work like any other job. And, the biggest thing for me is don't be scared. I think writers especially, we have a unique voice in our head that we need to channel. I always say that writers, we all tell the same stories, just how we tell them that sets us apart. So we have this unique voice in our head that we have to channel. And when we sit down to channel that voice, we start to type and we think, this will stink. It'll never sell. I'll never be published. The article will never be rejected. My husband needs dinner. I need to get the kids to soccer practice. I have to go work in the yard. And so the inspiration dies before it even starts. Or we want to mimic writers we love, which is natural, but that's going to get you nowhere. I mean, writing Harry Potter with cats or whatever just isn't going to happen. So just, overcome fear is my biggest thing in writing in life.
I now want to see you write a query letter about Harry Potter with cats.
I might do that.
That's pretty awesome. I think that actually might sell. It'd be like a kind of a fan fiction spin.
Yeah.
So you've mentioned inspiration a couple of times on here. Do you feel like you're someone who needs to be inspired to write, or are you just more like get it done and hope the inspiration finds you?
Yeah, I think I do need to be inspired. I think when you jump in to write a book and you're going to spend, it used to be longer. We had longer before contracts came along.
Right. It's getting faster.
It's important you feel deeply about the work that you're doing. You want to tell a story that connects with readers, but it's also personally meaningful. So I do think inspiration is an important part of it, because you don't want to sit down and slog through a novel that you have to finish that isn't calling to you on a deeper level. You want it to resonate. So I think it's both.
Okay. That's good. That's a good answer. I would agree with that. I think it's nice to have those little sparks, but you have to also be like in the seat, as you said.
Routine. You've got to, people are like, I think people are always shocked with authors because we are very routine. We spend a lot of time writing. I get up every single morning and spend 4 to 5 hours just writing before the rest of the business comes in. So, and you have to, you have to.
Yeah, of course, completely. So, you've been doing this a while. You have a lot of books out. You've had a lot of, really meaningful accomplishments. Is there anything that sort of stands out to you that you feel like you're most proud of?
Oh, that's a good question. I think personally, anytime independent booksellers give recognition, it's very meaningful to me.
Yeah.
I think they read a lot. They, booksellers are dear friends. They're the ones that hand sell our books. We can sell a lot on other sites, but they're the ones that, that tell readers, get to know their readers and their community. They say, oh my gosh, you should read Kristy's book. It's amazing. And give it to your book club. And that connects around the country. And so that's very meaningful.
Yeah, completely. I totally agree with you. And I do think those are really nice accomplishments. And those are real people behind there, and they when they believe in you, it really does mean a lot. So what's next for you? Are there any like major goals or, a story that you're working on that you're excited about that you can share with us? Anything like that?
Yeah. I'm really excited. I have 3 books that are due within the next year, which is
the next year.
Lithium Drip and Wine Drip all at once. So
gracious.
I just turned in my novel for next spring, summer, and it's tentatively titled The Summer Camp, and it's based around 4 women who grew up going to summer camp together in northern Michigan, and one of them passes away, and they ask her to scatter her ashes and reconnect because they've all drifted apart. And it's just really an ode to childhood friendships, why we lose them, and, childhood dreams, and why adult friendships are sometimes more difficult than those that we had when we were young. So very proud of it. And I'm doing my first winter themed novel. I'm working on that right now. I'm going to start doing a winter novel. And then I have a memoir coming out as well. So. And
you've written a couple of other memoirs as well, right?
Yeah, I've written 4 humorous memoirs, which is how I started my career. So I'm kind of going back, and I'm writing a book about my relationship with my father and how baseball bonded us.
I love that.
So I'm really excited. I just have to finish them, which is
which is the
kind of the deal.
But that's exciting. Okay, well, that's good. Well, I can't wait to read both of those. They sound amazing. Okay, will you tell everyone before we wrap up, where can they find you online and learn more about you?
Go to violashipman.com or waderouse.com. I'm launching an entirely new Wade Rouse website.
Well, yeah, because you write us both. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
No, that was a really good idea, actually.
So yeah, I think it's a nice, Viola's got all of my novels, all my work in fiction, and Wade Rouse is going to be much more all-encompassing, more of my other writing, and of course the new memoir that's coming out. And go to Facebook and Instagram, follow Viola Shipman. I've been doing Facebook Lives every Tuesday and Thursday, and you're on next. So
I've been on. I'm so excited.
It's been great. It's been a great way for to connect with readers and people that we can't see right now, and those that we often don't see as much. So it's been amazing.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. And I was going to tell everybody that Wade and Gary have this beautiful home that was featured in a magazine. And so I'm going to drop the link below so that everyone can see that and check it out, sort of see where you live and where you write. And it's super exciting. So thank you again for being our guest. And I'll look forward to chatting with you again soon. Bye.
Thanks for having me.